I want to cover two things in today's video. One, Seaside Hysteria, because on my Instagram, I kind of like alluded with a mood board about potentially doing an episode on my YouTube channel that was like dedicated to Seaside Hysteria, like books, perfumes, films that kind of felt like that type of vibe for spring and summer. I'm not somebody who likes summer, nor do I like the beach, nor do I like the ocean. I respect it. I think it's beautiful, but I'm trying to find ways to appreciate it in other ways that maybe you might understand too. Because if you're watching this channel, I feel like you get it. So I'm going to talk about that later. But I also want to do a Q&A because I feel like we've gotten to know each other. This is now my third month being on YouTube, and I've gotten lots of requests for it. So I wanted this to be like an intro Q&A, very simple, not that long, because on Substack, what I want to do weekly is more Q&A questions. Like if somebody's reading philosophy and they don't understand it, or something maybe like triggered them to think about something that they want to unpack, like I'd love to talk about that. If you have questions about me, or questions about like a book that I'm reading or a perfume that I recommend, or if you have like a really hyper specific request for a book that you're looking for, or a perfume or whatever, I just want to give that extra layer of depth to my Substack, which is my baby. I have spent a lot of time curating my Substack. It is my child. I write on there frequently, like at least a few times a week, and I don't paywall anything really. So I just wanted to have like something extra for people who want to support my channel. So before that though, I want to practice my Q&A stuff. So I'm going to do that with you, and then we'll get into Seaside Hysteria. Okay, the first question that I got was, do you think you can define yourself with one perfume or one book? So for perfume, Molecule 01 is my obvious choice, and not because it's neutral or not because, you know, it is minimalistic in that way, but it feels almost ghostly. It just really lingers without revealing itself. And I love that it smells so differently on anyone. It feels more like a memory than a fragrance, or an extension of me. And a lot of people are anosmic to Isoe Super, but I can definitely smell it on myself, and it is the freshest, cleanest, woodiest, most sensual smell that I've ever smelled on my skin, and I just get a ton of compliments, so it's kind of like a win-win, but it makes me feel most like me. For a book, this is very difficult. I'm also very bad at these types of questions, like a pick one. Like it gives me anxiety, so I'm going to give you a few. And this answer might change frequently depending on my mood. This probably is no surprise to those of you who know me, but Clarice Lispector is definitely one. A Breath of Life specifically. It's fragmented and obsessive and metaphysical, philosophical, feminine, and just completely unhinged. And if I had to pick, you know, at least a new-ish author, like she would definitely be it. For philosophy, this was kind of hard, but I think just because this topic has been top of mind recently, is Fear and Trembling by Soren Kierkegaard. And this really is a book about faith and madness and the loneliness of doing something that only you can understand. And it kind of feels like you're standing on a cliff edge in the dark, and a part of it is very terrifying, but it's just very honest. And the last one is The Ethics of Ambiguity by Simone de Beauvoir. So if I want to feel like there's a way to live through doubt with grace, or at least, you know, with some sort of comfort knowing that I'm not alone in feeling lost and stuck in the ambiguities of life, I really enjoy this. My bonus is A Myth of Sisyphus, and that's only because like sometimes I need the reminder that life is not necessarily about escaping the absurdity, but just making something beautiful inside of it. Okay, next question is, what is an author that really captured your attention but you haven't gotten the chance to read? So actually, wrong one. There we go. John Fowles. Look at these covers. I'm sorry. My friend Elle has the same cover. She has like the same book, same cover. So we were kind of like twinning for a while, and I've kind of like briefly skimmed through some of this, but I want to dive into this so badly, and this has haunted my shelves for years. And it's something about the structure of the Magus specifically, where it's just like a labyrinth. It's psychological and it's a little cruel, and it feels like it would ruin me in the right way. I also want to read more of C.S. Lewis. Not like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but like A Grief Observed, which I just recently read, but more that type of text. Virginia Woolf, properly. Not in pieces, but in solitude, with time, and in silence. Okay, what is your top 4 favorite movies? Again, I'm gonna cheat. So, top 4 is In the Mood for Love from 2000, Neon Genesis Evangelion. So this is another cheat of mine because it's kind of a series. There's a movie, but I'm talking about the series. If you want to be psychologically, please watch this. It's an anime from the 90s. House from 1977. The Four Adventures of Rinette and Mirabelle from 1987. But also Juno, which has a backstory that I'm not going to get into, but it makes me very emotional. And fun fact, there has not been one book or one film that has made me cry. And I promise you that there is a soul inside of here. I don't know what it is, but I will say Juno brought me pretty close, which I know to you probably doesn't make any sense. But like I said, there's kind of a backstory to that one. Also Daisies from 1966. Kiki's Delivery Service from 1989. Possession from 1981. Coraline from 2009. Le Bonheur from 1965. And lastly, The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Next question was asking about my favorite philosophers. So Kierkegaard is definitely one of them. He's like tragic and brilliant and dramatic and obsessed with love and despair and faith, but always kind of layered with irony. But also despair and self-awareness, and every page kind of feels like a journal entry that you might have written at like 3 a.m. Heidegger's another one, which just feels like my metaphysical, atmospheric type of read. He really turns the question of being into something haunting and beautiful, and it's heavy, but you kind of like the weight. Being in Time might be my desert island book, so that I could have like a mental breakdown. Schopenhauer's another one. He's depressive, but he's kind of like that depressive friend who just really gets it, and I feel like he would sit with you in silence while everything burned, and then write a very brilliant essay on suffering and classical music. Nietzsche is another one. When I'm feeling rebellious or extra sharp, you kind of like inhabit his thought when you need to like burn illusions down, and I kind of like him most when he's very emotional. And then also Simone de Beauvoir, of course, just her intellectual, ethically rigorous literature is what I crave a lot, and it's emotionally honest, and her writing just feels lived and fought for, and you appreciate how she stays grounded in ambiguity and never really pretends to have it all figured out. Yeah, she's kind of like my internal compass. The next question is, how do you manage to make time for everything? Like reading a lot of books and writing and doing all of that almost daily. So I don't, not really. I just really like let certain things fall away without guilt. My life has been very minimal, especially lately, and like almost monkish by design. I try to live like my future self would thank me, and that took many years of getting to this like emotional state. I am very introverted and I don't have a big social life. I have a decent social following here, and the irony of that is still an enigma to me. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but again, I make sacrifices in other areas of my life, and there is something about reading and writing that feels almost obsessive in a way for me. Like I can't imagine my life without reading and writing every day. And I would do it, and I have done it for $0, like not a single dime, and I would continue doing it for free every single day for the rest of my life. And I think that when you find something where you have that type of emotion towards, like, don't ever stop doing that, and always prioritize that, because it's very healing and therapeutic in a way, and it took me many years to realize that. Next question, what got you started on reading philosophy? So probably masochism, to be honest, or really the desire to find language for the ache. Like, I wanted something more demanding than self-help, which I deplore, but more honest than religion, and philosophy was very much that middle path for me. It was, it's uncertain and it's unhealed, but the curiosity is what keeps me coming back for more, and I'm constantly humbled by how little I know in the grand scheme of life. How do you handle anxiety and philosophy simultaneously without a crisis? I have crippling anxiety. Well, you are in good company, because I also have crippling anxiety. I think philosophy is how I manage the crisis, and it's not always successful, but it gives some shape to the chaos. I read Kierkegaard, for example, when I feel like dissolving, because at least he's also dissolved in a way, and I very much take breaks when it gets too heavy. Like, sometimes you need to cosplay the sleepy time tea bear and watch a cartoon or watch Ina Garden or something like that to decompress, and I do that frequently. Like, I do not go heavy on philosophy 24/7, but I talk about it here frequently because I think people are interested in it, and also there needs to be more women talking about philosophy. Okay, when my eyes keep skipping ahead. How do you deal with loneliness, and also how to control and manage yourself well? So I think when it comes to loneliness, I don't have the answer for this, but my thoughts are, I think you need to learn how to make friends with yourself, and not in like a cutesy aesthetic way, but in a brutal, patient, daily way, and give yourself a structure, even a soft one. I think loneliness gets worse when it's formless. So what helps me is building rituals and like keeping my space clean and getting outside when I'd rather disappear. I don't have the answer to this, but I did write a very long essay about this on Substack, if you're curious. When was the last time something ordinary, a scent, a sentence, a shadow, split you open a little? I love this question. So the other day, not to sound too poetic, but the light hit the corner of my bookshelf in a way that just reminded me of being 16. And suddenly I felt like crying over nothing. It was just a shape or a shadow or maybe some dust in the air, and this scent that brought me back to my teen years. I don't know if you guys remember, I actually think they still make it, but Victoria's Secret Pink had this perfume, and I think it was called like Bright and Clean, and it had this blue top to it. But there was something, maybe I was sampling a perfume, but it reminded me of my teen years, which were very, very, very dark. And scent has a very, very strong nostalgic trigger for me, for better or for worse. But I don't know, it's kind of what I live for. Those little tiny collapses are really the moments when you realize that the present is also a ghost. The next question is, how do I research perfumes? So I like this question. I try to avoid Sephora, and there's nothing wrong with Sephora, but I try to go to places like, when it comes to niche perfumery, like Scent Bar, or like there's a place in LA called the Scent Room, and it's really where people care deeply about fragrance and treat it like an art. So I talk to people behind the counter, I ask what's weird or what's personal to them, and I'm very cautious about who I follow on social media for fragrance. I think there are a few people who I love. For example, Invisible Stories, Tracy, I love her. She is like one of my favorite niche perfume followers. Also Cami Reviews. Somebody asked if I could spend the day with anybody living or dead, who would it be? And the first person who came to mind was Jesus Christ, which kind of feels on brand, especially for me right now. But I'd kind of want to talk to him without the noise of like centuries of interpretation, and just like sit somewhere quiet to ask him about time and love and how to keep going. And just so you know, I'm not a religious person, quite antithetical of that, but I am very curious about it, hence the like theology, philosophy deep dive that I've been in, especially this year. Also, obviously, Clarice Lispector in a dim cafe, and Carson in a museum, or maybe like Kierkegaard in a cemetery. But honestly, and not to sound super cheesy, but maybe like my childhood self, and I would just kind of like let her talk and ask her like, what's good? You know what I mean? I don't know. The next question was, what are you spiraling about? And I think if there's something that I'm supposed to be doing that I've missed, or like if I've chosen the wrong path, or worse, like if there isn't a path at all, and what if this version of me who is very ambitious and hopeful and trying so hard doesn't get to live the life that I've always dreamt of, and I keep trying to find my purpose, or at least like a thread to follow, but some days feel like I have like all of my loose ends are just all over the place, and I have too many windows open in my brain. Not to be all fig tree analogy up in here, but I know it's still a process, but it's a very lonely one. And ironically, I think that it's something that we all struggle with so deeply, is just this idea of purpose and life and meaning. And one of my biggest pet peeves is wasting my time, or when people waste my time, because it's like really the only frequency that we can never get back. So I just want to make sure that I'm on the right path. And a lot of the times I just feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, like at all. And I spiral about that frequently. It like to the point where sometimes like if I can't afford therapy, I will literally use like ChatGPT as my therapist, because I just don't know where to put all of this. You know what I mean? Okay, how do you balance consumption of comforting content versus more challenging, serious content that's like thought-provoking but just heavy or upsetting? I actually really love this question. And I just follow my energy and how I'm feeling that day, because that's why I always say that I'm a mood reader, because there are so many days when I cannot read heavy literature. It's just too much. So I think just listening to yourself is the most important thing. Like some days I just need to dissolve into something warm and soft and stupid, and other days I crave rigor and structure and confrontation and like intellectual stimuli. And I try not to judge each state. It's really just about balance over time, and not, you know, I think both kinds of content are medicine, just for different wounds. Okay, what books do you think are best if you want to improve essay writing and creative writing for school? Like for GCSEs, but open to anything. So On Writing by Stephen King is weirdly perfect. It's not just really about writing, but it's about building a life where your writing can survive, which I really appreciate. Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, is really like when you need something more gentle and more human. But I also think reading essays is really important, like Zadie Smith, Joan Didion, Olivia Lang. Yeah, I think just read until you start to hear rhythm in your head and underline things you don't understand. Come back to them later. I think good writing teaches you by osmosis. So, I don't know, just keep swimming in it, I guess. Steve Almond has a great book too. Truth is the mercy, arrow is the bow. I'm sorry, I butchered that, but Steve Almond, look up his writing book. That's very good. I got a question about like tips on starting your own Substack. Like, just start. There's plenty of room at the table. I know it feels like everyone is like girl blogging their Carrie Bradshaw life. I really don't like Carrie Bradshaw. And sometimes it can feel oversaturated, you know? But I think that if you really enjoy writing and you genuinely love writing, people will feel that. Don't try to be viral, just be true to who you are. And I don't know, I started mine with no real plan at all. I just needed something to say and somewhere to put it. And so that's what I did. Next question is, why does life seem so hard to live? Because it is. Because being a person is impossible sometimes, because we are trying to find meaning in a world that doesn't hand it to us. But also, I think it's hard because you care, because you're paying attention, and that's something to fix, I think. Like, it's something to build a life around. And I think that people who struggle and people who are skeptical of life and skeptical of things, we are like this way because we care. Even if we don't think we do, we do. Okay, how do you weigh being creative with, you know, having to earn money and get a job? I have a lot of thoughts on this, actually. It's hard, like really hard. And people who get to earn money simply by creating are so deeply privileged. And I think that we should be honest about that. Like, I work a regular jobs, multiple jobs. I go to school. I do things that drain me, and then I come home and I try to make space for the part of me that like actually feels alive. Like, I have like a 9 to 5 and then a 5 to 9 and then a 9 to 3 a.m. and then a few hours where I can just like rest, and then I do it over and over again, like on a loop. Sometimes they feed each other, sometimes they feel like enemies. And I try to protect my creative life from the pressure to perform or be profitable, but it's hard. Sometimes the art pays, usually it doesn't, but I do it anyway because it's really the only thing that reminds me that I'm not just surviving, it's the part of me that I refuse to give up. The next question I got was, how might Hume understand emotional regulation? And I don't think Hume saw reason and emotion as opposites. I think he thought reason was the servant of the passions. So emotional regulation to him would probably be about shaping our feelings through habit and reflection and community, and not suppressing them, but understanding their source, essentially like taming the storm without killing the weather. Okay, I said that this was going to be short, and alas, I am just yapping again incessantly. I'm sorry. I got a lot more questions, but I just picked a few. Hopefully this was entertaining for you. I really enjoy talking about this stuff, especially when it comes to like deeper philosophical questions that I think we can kind of like think through and brainstorm together. I very much enjoy that. So I don't know, if you'd like this and if you'd like me to do more of these, let me know. But now we can not so smoothly transition into this Seaside Hysteria vision that I had for this YouTube that has been taken over by this Q&A. So I have some books that I want to recommend to you, and also some fragrances and maybe some films to kind of give you like the vibe and the general aura of what Seaside Hysteria is. And just like I also want to curate like a list of things that really encapsulate that. So let's start with books, then we'll go into fragrance, and then films. So Seaside Hysteria, this is essentially a reading list for when you feel salt in your blood. It's somewhere between myth and memory, and it really encapsulates almost a woman standing at the edge of the sea. She's holding a book. Maybe she's already halfway gone. Maybe she's just beginning to remember who she was before the waves. So these are books for the ones who feel undone by open water, and for those who grieve mythically and love catastrophically and spiral beautifully. Some of these texts are ancient classic literary texts. Some of them are more contemporary, but all of them are emotionally waterlogged. They're not beach reads, essentially. They almost feel like tidal elegies. So this is what I have for you today, and I am excited to hear your thoughts on them and whether or not you've read any of these. So the first one is The Odyssey, and this is pure Seaside Hysteria. It's a man who spends 10 years trying to get home while the sea wrecks everything that he loves. There's monsters and storms, gods, grief. Meanwhile, the women wait, they weave, they weep, they curse. Some of the men are even turned into pigs, and some become myths. So it's not just an epic, it's really the blueprint for spiraling across oceans. So this is essentially for sirens, widows, witches, and girls who understand that exile is a form of love. The next one is Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. This is fogs, cliffs, shipwrecks, and masculine violence that is barely held in check. The sea is brutal here. It's not romantic, but it's ravenous. And this is for girls who walk the coast at night and don't flinch when the wind howls back. The next one, Daphne du Maurier, Rebecca. I will never stop recommending this book, and I feel like she is so beautifully classified and falls under the umbrella of so many gothic umbrellas. But for this, specific Seaside Hysteria instance, this is a second wife haunted by the first, a coastal estate where silence becomes hysteria. The waves are always in the background waiting. And this is really for the girls who confuse stillness with safety. Please read this book. It is so epic. It is such an immersive experience. Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector is not a story, but a current. It's a monologue that dissolves form and self. And while there's no beach and no waves, it's just you breaking apart softly. And this feels like a book for sirens who no longer need to sing because their silence became a part of a spell. The next one is The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima, and this is obsession, youth, cruelty. A boy worships a sailor, and then it turns on him when love enters the equation. This is quiet, devastating, and sea-salted nihilism. The next one, I have this book and I cannot find it. It is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, and this is the holy grail of aquatic grief and transformation. It's sapphic, poetic, and profoundly eerie. A woman essentially returns from a deep sea expedition, but her wife tries to love her through it, and this is what it means to mourn someone who is still there, and I feel like this is what the ocean does to love as well. To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. This is a book where nothing happens and everything happens. The sea pulses in the background as time bends around domestic life and inner thought. It's not about the lighthouse, it's about memory, mothering, and the impossibility of permanence. I would read this on a windy day so you can cry for no reason. The next one is Fragments by Sappho, translated by Anne Carson, and this is the sea glimmering between the gaps. Desire lives in the white space. And I think reading Sappho is like piecing together someone else's love letters that washed ashore centuries ago. And I think that every line is a wound, every wave feels like a whisper in this book. Speaking of waves, The Waves by Virginia Woolf. This is language as tide. Woolf's most abstract novel, in my opinion. Each character's voice flows like a wave, rising and falling into one another, and identity really dissolves here. Time distorts, and you might not follow the plot, but you'll really feel the ocean in your chest as you read this book. Circe by Madeline Miller. This is a modern myth that really earns its place. I actually really love this book. Like, as a modern literary fiction book, like, I genuinely enjoyed this. And in this book, Circe is exiled, made into a villain, and ultimately reclaims her own story. It's set on an island with potions and pigs and emotional exorcisms, and it's perfect for anyone who's ever been called too much. The Sea by Iris Murdoch is an aging man who isolates himself on the coast and thinks that he's found peace. He hasn't. It's obsession and narcissism and memory that really floods the pages, and it's unhinged in a very deeply British way. Bluets by Maggie Nelson, another book that I can't find, but I love this book. It isn't technically about the sea, but it feels like standing in it, essentially. It's short vignettes on heartbreak, desire, and the color blue, and it almost feels like crying while drinking your coffee and thinking about a poem that someone wrote to you 10 years ago. And lastly is The Summer Book by Tove Jansson, and if you like Moomin, you will recognize this name. This book is about quiet grief, northern light, and deep companionship. Essentially, a child and her grandmother live on a Nordic island, and basically they speak to one another in sparse, meaningful words, and it's not dramatic. It's not, super heavy drama in the text, but it's profoundly moving, and the sea here is not howling. It hums and it ebbs and it flows, and it's a beautiful, dare I say, almost comforting story within this sea of dark literature. I am someone who has a lot of mixed feelings about the ocean because I do not like the water. I am very much a cat. I do not like to get wet. I do not like to go to the pool and splash around in the ocean ever. I think the ocean is magnanimously brilliant and beautiful and eerie and enigmatic in a way. It almost feels like art, but I am so deeply afraid of the ocean. I have so much respect for it too. I love observing her from afar, and that is as far as I'll go. You will never catch me in the ocean, ever. But I do think that it's absolutely beautiful. And I understand why people find it very, I don't want to say enlightening, but just refreshing, and like it wakes them up. It doesn't do that for me, but I do think it's beautiful. I would love to see the ocean in Iceland. I think that would be so stunning. On the coast of Ireland, like any sort of like gothic beach. I think like the black sand in Iceland just sounds so stunning. I would be very afraid, but I would be so awestricken by the beauty of like my environment. I think I'd be really overwhelmed, but it sounds beautiful. Okay, we're moving into fragrance territory for your Seaside Hysteria spring summer. I typically do not like sunscreeny, coconutty, beachy scents, but these are more reminiscent of like a gothic summer escapade. With that said, I've kind of broken them down into 3 different vibes categories, so I'm going to share them with you. So these first 3 are like the prelude to Hysteria, the calm before the storm. The first one is Le Labo Bay 19. This is like rain on pavement, moss, petrichor, ozone. It doesn't smell like the ocean, but it smells like everything right before the storm. This is like for the girl who walks barefoot along the rocks before the sky breaks open. She's not crying, but the air tastes like she might. This next one is Rainwood by Perfumer H. Galbanum, cedar, frankincense, moss, myrrh, and a cold green rainstorm through a forest that leads into the sea. This is like for a solitary figure in a green raincoat wandering the cliffs, with mud on her boots and a secret lodged in her chest. Kind of like cliffside, seaside. Swim by Gabar is so good. There's fig, orris, green tea, currant buds. It's aquatic but off kilter, like swimming in your clothes. This is for the one who dives into the sea at dusk, fully clothed, hoping that the cold will reset something inside of her. Okay, the next category is Saltwater Saints and Sirens. And of course, Tears by Regime de Fleur. This is lilac, orris, rosewater, ambergris. This is delicate and drowning. And it is for the softest girl in the village who prays with flower petals and disappears at high tide. You will find her rosary tangled in the seaweed. For this next one, I do not have this yet. It is so high on my wish list, it's not even funny. And I was avoiding it for a while because I didn't think I would like it. But I sprayed it on my skin and I fell like so hard. I fell so hard for this, and it's so feminine and pretty and kind of like antithetical to me. But it's Little Flower by Regime de Fleur. The one that she collaborated with Chloe Sevigny, who is my wife. This is a bleeding heart, black tea, incense, autumn and rose, soft, strange, and sacred. It's like an orphaned bride turned saint, still waiting on the shore for a ghost. She smells like tea and roses and incense and just like a bouquet of the most ethereal flowers that you would have ever smelled in your whole life. The dry down on this is insane. Let me tell you, if you are looking for a spring or summer scent, sans Seaside Hysteria. If you want to be feral for a fragrance, Little Flower is stunning. And the fact that it's like Chloe Sevigny's scent, enough said, period. The next one is Fishersund 23. I love this brand. They are based out of Iceland. And if you like Sigur Rós, the main singer, his whole family started this fragrance line. Definitely go look it up. I'm going to put the link in the description for their website because everything that they create is so atmospheric, so stunning, and so beautiful. Number 23 is Pepper, Tobacco, Fir. It's briny and it's dark and it's wild, and it encapsulates this whole aesthetic so perfectly. This is like for the Selkie who never shed her skin, and now she's like chain smoking on a black sand beach and pretending not to miss home. Lamar by House of Beau. This is as beachy as I'm gonna get, okay? Also, this bottle is so beautiful. This looks like a mermaid bottle. Yeah, it's stunning. Okay, so gardenia, seawater, tuberose, coconut, ginger. It's floral, it's salty, it's just a little bit ghostly. It's like a myth rewritten in salt and gardenia. And the girl who wears this drowned centuries ago, but she still lingers. And she wears pearls, and she is just impossibly longing for love and life at sea with her lover. It's beautiful. This is a very like ethereal sea nymph type of scent. I recommend. If you're into this sort of thing, I recommend. Okay, next category. Plastic Tears and Sunburned Hauntings. Hear me out. Because the first one is, I have to find it. A little ASMR. Here it is. Holy Hell by Universal Flowering. This is plastic, suntan lotion, toasted seashell, melon, neroli. It's hot. It's hallucinatory. This is for the sun-poisoned girl in a Polaroid who vanished at 17. It's the scent of melted lip gloss and burnt offerings and bad decisions. Almost antithetical to this, we have Comet by Chanel. Iris, heliotrope, almond dust, soft, light, delicate, and dreamlike, just out of reach. This is for the girl that you see dancing alone on the beach at night. She's beneath, a sky of stars that are so bright that they look like they might speak. The next is The Point by Clue Perfumery, and this is mineral, seawater, porcelain, honey, crystalline, and uncanny. This is, she came from the sea with porcelain skin and a honeyed smile, but her eyes she's in another world, right? She doesn't quite belong here. Elio by Diptyque, and I think they're discontinuing this, which makes me really sad because this was actually like a really beautiful Diptyque scent. This is like prickly pear, iris bergamot, sunshine through tears. The hair mist in this is really, really beautiful as well. And this is for a girl who collects cacti and unread letters and she laughs at something that she can't explain. Summer clings to her like a bruise that does not fade. Despite this description though, it's really, really beautiful and it's very light and it feels great for hot weather. This is like a perfect hot weather scent. This last category is dreamy florals and philosophical seafoam. Hear me out, because I'm going to start with one of my favorites of all time, and the most compliments that I get from a fragrance is Valaya by Parfum de Marly. This is white peach, aldehyde, orange blossom, musk. It's clean and it's ghostly and it's perfect. This is for the Victorian girls who are pressed between the pages of philosophy books. They smell like white linen and strange restraint, but it's very ethereal, very sea nymph-like as well. It's stunning. Apart from this aesthetic, this truly is a beautiful scent, and I get so many compliments on this, and I think this perfume with little flower just makes me feel beautiful. And I think that that's enough. I think that's all you need in a fragrance. This next one is unique. It's one of the Chanel exclusives. I don't have this yet, but it's one of my favorites, and it's Sycamore by Chanel. There's vetiver, cypress, cedar, soft smoke. It's austere and rooted and quietly devastating. It's for the woman who lives alone in a stone house by the sea, surrounded by pine and silence. She reads philosophy, ancient classic literature, and doesn't answer the door. This is a beautiful Chanel scent. It's, like I said, probably one of my top 2 in their whole collection. Orpheon by Diptyque is one of my favorite Diptyque scents. And I have this, it's in the other room, and I am lazy, I'm sorry. But this is juniper, jasmine, powder, cedar. It's nostalgic and very feminine, very solitude, perfect for introverts. It feels like something you would wear on a stormy night, wearing a borrowed coat from your lover. There is something very addictive and melancholic about it that I love so much. I have it in the solid perfume and the shower gel, and it's stunning. Lastly is A Grove by the Sea by Arquiste. This is fig, salt, fennel, fir. It's coastal, herbal, and quietly mythic in a weird way. This is for a Greek widow who still performs in the same seaside rituals every solstice, even if she's forgotten why. There's an olive note in this that I think is so beautiful and unique, and I love this. There's something about this that reminds me of my childhood, and I don't know what it is, but it's very nostalgic for me in that way. Stunning. I love Arquiste, and this fits this whole aesthetic so perfectly.